Let's chat about naming your characters. This is something that I believe can be fun. It doesn't have to be hard. So let's dive into how I go about naming my characters. The first place I look is online, of course, and I will type in Google a bunch of different things depending on what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for an obscure name, I'll put rare names and then put around the date that I want my story to take place. So I could put like present day names that are obscure or that are rare, something like that. And then I will also do popular last names or popular first names. It's just depending really on what you're looking for. You might also want to put in something to do with your genre that you're hoping to write in, because that sometimes will have some names that people have come up with that they're just sharing and that they don't mind people using. So that's something else that you can try to do. There are a lot of name databases online, so that is usually one of my first stops. Another great place to find names is to look to your family tree. So for one of my characters in one of my recent short stories that I'm hoping to expound upon into a novel, I am using the first name Violet, and it's actually my mother's maiden last name, so it has a different kind of spelling. And I just thought about rare names that are really not used as a first name according to this type of spelling, and that's what I came up with. So that's another place where you can look and you can search to see if there are some neat names that you can use for your characters. As odd as it sounds, you can also use the cemetery, or you can search historical documents to find some rare names, especially if you're writing something that is a historical fiction novel. I did this recently for one of my new books that I'm working on during Camp Nano, and I actually went to a cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts, where I found several names that could work for the surname of my main character. Lastly, I like to keep a running log kind of names that I come across, and if they are of interest to me, I write them down. So recently I was actually working on a design project and I had to put in names of volunteers, and one of the names I really liked it a lot, so I decided to use it and tweak it a little bit so that it could be one of the supporting characters of my story. So I recommend anytime you hear a name or you see a name that you really like to write it down in a notebook somewhere, so that way you can keep track of it for when you go to write your story. There are a couple of things that I like to consider when I am figuring out the names of my characters. First of all, I like to look up the name when I find the first name and the last name in Google to see if it's the name of a famous person or a character that already exists. I try to do this because I want to make sure that my name is unique, especially if it's a main character. I also like to think if it fits my character's personality, if it fits their cultural and ethnic background, and things like if it fits the time. So if it doesn't fit the era, then I usually try to avoid it, because I want my stories usually to kind of be realistic. I'm not writing things that are way out there unless I'm doing something that's like fantasy or something, but usually I'm trying to find names that fit the time that the story is set. I also usually try to avoid names that are too trendy, because other people will likely use those names as well. And then lastly, I really like to consider the meaning behind the name, especially because it will help me when I'm writing to make sure that the character embodies whatever their name is. It's not necessary to worry about the name, but for instance, in a short story that I'm currently working on, I have a supporting character that is named Nerissa, and Nerissa actually means mermaid, and she's a mermaid. So I decided to use that in this short story. I don't know if I'll keep it if I do expand this into a full-length novel, but it's something that I liked because it had meaning, and I always love when names have meaning. So I want to hear from you. What do you do when you're looking for names? These are the things that work for me. I love to go through each of these things to kind of sort out my names. I like to make it a fun process and not one that's overwhelming, just because I feel like it doesn't have to be, and I don't like to stress myself out. So what do you do? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. And then if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.